Equality and Inclusion Officer. The Equality and Inclusion Officer advocates for marginalised and underrepresented communities at the university. They will address systemic barriers and create an inclusive environment for the university.
My name is Zoe. I'm joined with Sam, who is running for the role of Equality and Inclusion Officer. I'm going to jump right into it. Your first manifesto point centres a weekly radio show. Why would you need to be elected to the officership to do this show?
Well, I think the idea around the radio show is that it was really putting together every sort of background from York, and I really wanted to have these discussions where we talk about really delving deep into the issues at the university. And I think at the moment I am known in these committees, and I am known in a lot of places, but I think I wanted to do the radio show as a way to sort of promote those places, because I think occasionally they don't do as well as I think they should, and it is a shame, because I think there's so many people who do so much great work, and I really wanted the radio show to be a chance to sort of show that off and have these, because there's a lot of nuance around equality and inclusion work, and I really wanted to provide a space for that nuance and give a space for people to discuss things in depth.
Okay, and I was a programme controller here at University of Radio York. If you were to get elected and you were to start doing the show, would it be on URY?
Yeah. I'd really like to do that, and my idea for the show is to call it Residencies, just because it's a little pun on radio, but also one of the joys I have about talking to my friends and stuff is that even if we come from slightly different backgrounds, I always find that no matter who I'm talking to, there's a resonancy between us. And that's another thing that I wanted to highlight with the show, is that we are all connected. And that's kind of a big part of my manifesto, is that everyone has similarities between them.
Yeah, and just a last point on this. How would you make sure that the show would have a real impact on students' experiences?
So I really wanted to have the show highlight things at certain times of year. So things like History Months, things like cultural events like Holi Festival, things like Ramadan. And I wanted to discuss things like how are these events practiced, what is the history of them. And personally, one that I find really interesting is the idea of transgender visibility, because it's a question of, well, do we want to be visible? And I think it's those sort of questions around those events, I think often they're celebrated and they're talked about, but there aren't actually personal discussions about them a lot of the time. So that's kind of what I wanted to do.
Okay, and you later state in your manifesto you want to create and promote student handbooks. Could you explain a little bit more about what that would entail? Yeah,
so we currently have BAME student handbooks. There's a working class handbook, but I don't think they have consistent ones for every network. And I think that was the place that I wanted to have, where it says this is what this place is and what they do. And it helps to sort of set people in, especially freshers, to sort of understand what is going on in the university and in the city. And then I was going to use my social media platform, if elected, to sort of promote what events they are doing. And I wanted them to sort of work with each other, so that the handbooks show where the place is, the social media shows when it is.
Okay. And you state that you wish to fund events for each Liberation Network. How would you try and secure this funding for them? Yeah, so
I as an old member of the LGBT Network, they used to do big queer cabarets, and they were really, really nice events. It was really nice to see all these different talents. And they were really useful for providing funding for future events and future goals. And I think one of the problems with the current Liberation Networks is that they can struggle a little bit in terms of finding committee members and finding funding, and getting all of the community together and putting a big showcase on is a really good way of getting everybody to sort of pay attention to your community, and people will really start wanting to make their own impact within that.
Yeah, and in the belonging section, that you wanted to create guidelines when conducting research on student and staff opinions on the disability services. How do you foresee that research improving them?
So I'm currently an autism mentor, and I find that a lot of the things they say is that the disability services, they kind of, because there are a lot of students, they kind of streamline the process, and they give things that the student necessarily isn't asking for. And it does help, but I want to make sure that there's a bit more of a back and forth with the student. And I think working out what it is that people think of them and what can be practically done is a really good way of just sort of trying to push the needle a bit with that.
And yeah, I'm going to have to stop you there as we go to the next interview in Studio Blue. Thanks for your time.